By definition from our notes, the reference angle is the smallest angle formed by the terminal side of theta and the x-axis. So first you would need to know what terminal side means, and I explained that in the video called definition of terminal point or something along those lines. So once you've watched that video and you understand what terminal side of theta means, this one will be much more simple. Okay, so first thing I'm going to do is actually draw an angle and label its terminal side. Then I can demonstrate what we mean by the smallest angle formed with the x-axis. Okay, so the first example I have here is 330 degrees. Now, from the terminal point video, you'll know that we should always start measuring our angle from 0, and that is always at 1, 0 on our grid. Then we measure around the unit circle 330 degrees. Now, if you remember your axes, the y-axis up here is 90 degrees, the x-axis is 180 degrees, and the bottom y-axis is 270 degrees. That's going to make it a lot easier to figure out where 330 falls. So 330 is somewhere in the fourth quadrant, and if you have a unit circle, it's actually on the unit circle as one of the points you have to memorize. So I'm going to say, because I'm just kind of freehanding this drawing, 330 degrees is somewhere around there. Okay, so what I've actually drawn is the angle measurement all the way around the unit circle from 0 all the way around until we got to the point where we've traveled 330 degrees. Now this line that I just drew in right here is the terminal side. Okay, so the definition again, smallest angle formed by the terminal side and the x-axis. Now the x-axis goes on two different sides of the circle, so no matter where your angle is, there will be a way to get quickly to the x-axis. Now the reason we say the smallest angle is because we're looking for this angle formed right here in between the terminal side and the x-axis, and not looking for this really large angle that goes all the way around. Even though technically that dotted angle is an angle between the terminal side and the x-axis, it's not the smallest one that you can possibly form. So it's always going to be the one between the x-axis and the terminal side, and the closest one that you can find. So now we need to figure out what is that angle measurement. We label it as theta with a bar on top. And to figure out the measurement, you're going to need to do a little bit of subtracting, which is different in each case. So here I know that the angle for the x-axis is 360 degrees if I went all the way around the circle. And I made it 330 degrees. So in between, the difference between those two is 30 degrees. So what I did was 360 minus 330, and that gave me 30 degrees. Now it's not always going to work that way. You're not always going to subtract the x-axis from the terminal side. It kind of depends on where you're located. You always want the reference angle to be positive. So for example, if I did a smaller angle, like 30 degrees, if I did that same exact process and did 0 minus 30 degrees, just like here I did x-axis minus terminal side, I would get a negative reference angle. So you don't want a negative reference angle. You will have to be a little creative on each of these. There's going to be a slightly different process, but all that you're looking for is that gap between the terminal side and the x-axis. And so in this case, I would actually want to do 30 minus 0 to get a positive gap or difference of 30 degrees. Okay, so let's try a few others. I've also got 200 degrees as an example. And again, you always start by measuring from 0 at 1, 0. Go around 200 degrees. So if I go around here to 180, it goes a little bit further than that. And again, I'm kind of freehanding, so this isn't completely accurate, but that I'm going to say is 200 degrees. Okay, so now I've got the terminal side drawn in, and I've got the x-axis located right above that. And again, I want the shortest distance to the x-axis. So for this particular angle, that would be this little reference angle right here. Notice that I could have gone from here around to get back to an x-axis, but that is the larger of the two possibilities. So this one is the one that I want to use for my reference angle. And again, the way you subtract differs in each quadrant, but all we need to do is figure out what angle measurement did I go through to get from the 180 down to 200. And so here I'm going to subtract 200 minus 180 and get 20 degrees as the gap between the x-axis and that terminal side. So in this case, the reference angle is 220. So now I want to try one that is negative. So now let's try negative 45 degrees. Now when you have a negative angle, you're going to measure again from 0 every single time, but this time instead of going up and around counterclockwise, I'm going to go down and around clockwise. So I'm going to measure this direction 45 degrees. Now when you're doing things using negative angles, you have to start thinking of everything on your unit circle as negative. So this is also negative 90 degrees. This is the same as negative 180. And this is the same as negative 270, because if we kept going around to get from here all the way around, we've gone 270 degrees. We've just gone clockwise instead of counterclockwise. So anyway, here's our negative 45 degree angle. That is the terminal side. And again, we're looking for the closest angle between this one and the x-axis. So this is this gap right here that I'm looking for. And again, I want to do whatever subtraction is going to give me a positive angle and tell me the measurement of that angle in between. So here I've got negative 45 degrees and 0. I'm going to subtract 0 minus negative 45 degrees to get a positive 45 degree reference angle. All right, I hope that helps. As usual, if you have any questions, you can always email. You can even comment on this video and I'll see it, and I can post any follow-up if I need to. Thank you.